It was pitch black, oh dark 30 as they say in the military, as the bus I was being transported on pulled up to the gates of Parris Island. We had just stopped at a McDonald's before reaching the gate where everyone had one last cigarette, a burger if nerves permitted, and a quick prayer. It would be our last encounter with the outside world for the next 3 months. As the guards at the gate checked all of our IDs, one barked out, "Who's release?" Oh, why is he calling my name? There were 20 other people on the bus with me, so thought it was a little weird that I was the only one being singled out. I hesitated for a moment, returned in a soft and timid voice. "Here." "Yeah, you're not going to pass the piss test," he snarled as he threw the IDs on the floor before departing back to his post. And there I was, not even through the gate, and I was already being targeted, I assumed, for the fact that I had longer hair and looked as though I partook in recreational drug use. That really set the tone for my stay on the exclusive Parris Island, and made me even more nervous about the journey I was about to embark on. The bus pulled slowly through the gate and continued to the next destination, the infamous Yellow Footprints. The bus drove for what seemed like an hour along a dark and winding road as it slowly snaked its way to the receiving building. I remember having an overwhelming feeling of nervousness beginning to creep up. Kind of like the feeling you get before you go up to give a big speech in front of your class. I looked outside of the window and I could only see dark swamp. There were no buildings. I remember thinking to myself, Jesus, how long is this road? Eventually, we rounded into the main part of the base, but because it was so dark outside, I couldn't see much of anything other than just roads and unmarked government buildings. One thing I did see, illuminated by the soft orange glow of the streetlights, was these metal pipe groupings which seemed to be suspended by poles. All the pipes were above ground and just zigzagged through the island. Steam could be seen billowing from some of them, and I remember thinking that it was somewhat unusual, as one doesn't normally see pipes above ground. It was just one of the many things that immediately had made Parris Island a ghostly and bizarre place to be. It wasn't long before the bus driver, a decent enough fellow, told us all to put our heads down between our knees. They did that, I'm assuming, to disorient us more to our surroundings, where we were and what was about to happen. And let me tell you, it worked. Not only did it work on the mind, but it also worked on the body. I began to feel that nervous nausea creep up on me. It sort of began to have second thoughts about my decision to join the United States Marine Corps. As the bus came to a stop, my heart started to pound even harder, and even though nobody could see where we were, we all knew. Parris Island is one of the 2 Marine Corps recruit depots where any potential recruit residing east of the Mississippi River crazy enough to sign a usmc contract is sent to for boot camp, the other one being in San Diego. Every recruit starts their journey as a potential United States Marine at the very same spot as thousands of other Marines at the Yellow Footprints. It's not only the first time a recruit will stand at a position of attention, but it's the beginning of a rite of passage. I remember getting goosebumps all down my arms as I sat on that bus with my head between my legs. I could practically feel the spirit of all the Marines, past and present, who have fought and died for the causes of the United States since November 10th, 1775. We had indeed arrived at the Yellow Footprints, and I knew it would not be long before an angry drill instructor would break onto the bus and scream for us all to run off as fast as we could. I had no idea what to expect or what was going to happen. Thoughts of torment, abuse, and even death began to run through my mind, because after all, I was going to be an infantryman if I survived boot camp. Would I ever be normal again? Would I ever be able to make it home again? All I knew was that I had to make it at least the next 13 weeks, and then I could figure out the rest later. After what seemed like hours, I heard the bus door open with a deafening creak.
Get off my damn bus right now!
The faceless voice bellowed with great force. Everyone on the bus screamed simultaneously, "Yes, sir!" I shot up from my seat to see everyone filing off as fast as possible. I quickly got off the bus and ran straight into the brisk December evening air, where everyone was running as fast as they could to the Yellow Footprints. The drill instructor, some nameless Marine in a Smokey the Bear campaign cover, was screaming,
15, 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It was our countdown to get onto the yellow footprints on their time, which was not much time at all. By the time he screamed,
"One!"
I was on my spot on the yellow footprints, standing at the position of attention with nothing but the clothes on my back, an old red button-up, which I considered my lucky shirt, a pair of jeans, a pair of old New Balance sneakers, and my wallet, which contained roughly $1 and some change in cash. It was all I had in this world, all I had left, and all I left behind as the last seconds of my civilian life came to an end. The drill instructor, who was simply just what they called a receiving drill instructor and not one of our permanent drill instructors who would ultimately train us, was pacing back and forth as we all stood there shivering at the position of attention on the yellow footprints outside of the receiving barracks. I could still see it now. I could still see exactly where I was standing. I could already hear tons of screaming from other recruits on the island who had arrived earlier. It was already chaos. The distant, "Aye, sir!" screams, which floated through the island like a ghostly echo, sent shivers down my spine. The drill instructor started his famous speech in that distinctive, gruff and rough bullfrog voice every USMC drill instructor has.
"You are now aboard Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island, South Carolina, and you have just taken the first step towards becoming a member of the world's finest fighting force, the United States Marine Corps."
Jesus, I was really here. This was really happening. I stood there at the position of attention, trying not to shiver as the cold, swampy winds whipped across my face. Nothing went through my mind other than the angry drill instructor who continued to pace back and forth while we all stood at the position of attention. It seemed almost like a dream as the drill instructor continued his speech, which included going over the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, and other customary details. My head was locked straight forward, fighting off the urge to look around at my surroundings. I did not dare do so. I don't think anyone ever did or ever would. The drill instructor, DI, continued.
"The Marine Corps' success depends on teamwork. Teamwork, therefore, is an essential part of your training here at Parris Island. Starting now, you will train as a team. You will live, eat, sleep, and work as a team. The word I will no longer be part of your vocabulary. You will say this recruit, that recruit, these recruits. Do you understand?"
We all screamed, "Yes, sir!"
"Yeah, right. Do you understand?"
"Yes, sir!" As it seemed to get colder with the nighttime chilly air picking up, the receiving drill instructor finished his speech.
"Tens of thousands of Marines began outstanding service to our country on the very footprints where you are standing. Are you ready to carry forward their tradition?"
"Yes, sir!"
"Yeah, right. Are you ready?"
He screamed again, wanting more volume from the lot of us. We screamed louder that time, sending echoes throughout the island.
"Follow me up to those hatches."
We then ran up to the receiving building front hatches, or doors, where above them, red and bold, through these portals passed prospects for America's finest fighting force, United States Marines. The fog of war. The fog of war is a term used by the Marine Corps and the Army to describe the sort of fatigue, confusion, sickness, pain, and misery experienced by Marines and soldiers in a combat situation. You're really running blind, fighting complacency, and in a state of total confusion during the fog of war. Well, the first night on Parris Island certainly qualifies as a fog of war type situation simply because we were thrust into a world of bizarre and craziness that we, until entering those front hatches of the receiving building, were completely ignorant to. Unlike other branches, including the Air Force, and maybe even the Army, Marine recruits are not given the luxury of a night of sleep upon their arrival. There was no beauty sleep that first night, my friend. No! They kept us up for the first 2 days, running here, running there, all while they introduced us to the new world of the USMC. I still remember vividly the first thing that I noticed upon entering the receiving building was the smell. The smell was god-awful. It was like the most pungent and potent government-issued cleaning solution, bleach and pine sol, smell that I had ever had the displeasure of smelling. It permeated my nose and immediately gave me a migraine. I've smelled a lot of bad smells in my day, but the smell in the receiving building barracks on Parris Island was one of the worst and will never leave my memory. The first few moments of this experience consisted of writing our names on a little piece of paper, laminated type of thing. Sort of like a temporary name tag, since our uniforms didn't have our names on them for the first few weeks. They had us running around all over the place like chickens with our heads cut off, and of course, there were lots and lots of screaming and yelling. And the first thing which became quite apparent was that no matter how loud we screamed, "Aye, sir," it was never loud enough, and it was not uncommon to have to scream it upwards of 20 times, loud as possible, before they'd be satisfied. Now, that being said, I do distinctly remember thinking to myself, you know what, this really isn't so bad so far. I might be able to make it through here without any problems. I mean, yeah, they're yelling, they're screaming, but honestly, it's not too bad. Well, that was a drastic false assumption I was making, as the receiving drill instructors were just not as hard on us, and what they were giving us was a watered-down bitch version of what we'd be getting for real at the end of the week. One of the first things we did in the receiving building was make our one and only phone call home. Standing in front of a phone box on the wall, literally something from the Vietnam War era, I made my phone call home reading only from the prompt, which was crudely taped onto the door of the prehistoric device. Now, this detail may not seem important, but it is. In this day of age where we are so used to technology and all the comforts of society, seeing an old rusty phone, decades old, really played on my psyche and made me feel that much more cut off from the world, and was just one of the many tactics the Marine Corps used to begin to break us down, piece by piece. I made haste in dialing the phone number which I had memorized for that one and only occasion. My mother picked up on a landline which she had installed specifically for the purpose of receiving that one and only call, and said nothing as I said aloud, with the drill instructor breathing down my neck, "Hello, I have arrived safely at Parris Island. Please do not send me anything bulky in the mail. I will write to you in a few days. Thank you for your support. Goodbye for now." The whole thing lasted 10 seconds. She didn't even have time to get a word out before I was pulled away from the phone and herded along with the large group of other screaming recruits into a small room where we would receive our first haircut, the boot camp cut. We were sardine-packed with at least 50 to 60 recruits inside that barber room, and I was beginning to feel very claustrophobic. We had to stand what they would call nut to butt with each other, which basically meant my face was jammed into the back of another recruit's head and vice versa. It was hot, and everyone was beginning to feel the pain by that point. Tired, aching, sweaty. Yeah, it was beginning to dawn on me now that things were only going to go downhill from there. As we were standing there for what seemed like an hour, I remember seeing some kid, a kid who actually ended up being in my boot camp platoon with me, named, quote, Moline, looking very pale, sweaty, and wobbling back and forth. Not sure if he was about to spew chunks or pass out, but he looked like he was going to do both simultaneously. We got buzzed and filed out into a classroom-looking space where we gave up all our possessions. For me, it was my wallet and clothes on my back. We were then filed out to receive all our uniforms and gear, about 80 pounds, shoved into 2 sea bags, as well as other toiletries. And don't forget all the screaming. That screaming never stopped even for a second. We were running everywhere, walked nowhere, and most of the time we had to repeat the drill instructor's orders multiple times for one reason or another. We then ran up 3 flights of stairs about 10 times because people were not moving fast enough for the drill instructor, and then were staged with about 150 guys in a large, empty squad bay. The smell was much worse up there, and I was beginning to feel sick and tired as things got more hectic. They were ordering us to sit in certain spots with certain groups of recruits, further making the situation confusing. Looking back in hindsight, they were sort of sectioning us off into what platoons we were going to be in, but because of the fog of war, I really didn't know what was going on or what they were doing or what I was supposed to be doing. Honestly, it was just a bunch of chaos. Now, I do distinctly remember wanting to force myself to shit. My mother and father had both served in the United States Air Force and told me that they both had trouble defecating when they got to basic training. My mother, who had a knack for scaring the crap out of me with her stories, told me that one girl she was in basic with had to get an enema because she couldn't, shit. I did not want that happening, so I made it my mission to try to force a turd even though I didn't have to go. I felt like if I could just squeeze one pebble out, that somehow I'd be good for a few days and the dreaded enema would not be needed. There was some downtime there while we were waiting in the empty squad bay, and even though drill instructors were yelling all over the place, recruits were screaming at the top of their lungs, and there was just overall confusion. Some recruits were running into and out of the head bathroom for one reason or another. I requested permission and ran to the head to try to force a shit. And on the run to the head, I glanced around the open squad bay and estimated that there were at least 3 groups of 60 to 70 recruits sitting crisscross Indian style on the deck. The head looked as if though it had not been updated since 1942, and while that may be an exaggeration, I'm sure I was not too far from being accurate. It was drab, cold, and surrounded by a cinder block wall with only 2 doorless stalls. I sat on that cold porcelain throne and prayed to God and let me drop a turd, but I was unfortunately unable to. The screams from all the drill instructors and the recruits echoed through that squad bay and into that weird bathroom like something out of a horror story. And as a result, my asshole was, wired tight. I really cannot put it into words what it was like sitting there fighting for a turd to come out while listening to those deafening screaming echoes. I mean, it was just creepy. Running back to where the rest of my group of people were sitting, I passed by several large puddles of puke from various recruits that had been unable to make it to the head.